Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. When I tell you I'm excited, I'm really excited, you guys. You really have no idea how happy I am to see this come into fruition. And to be able to talk about leadership, to be able to plant some seeds and to inspire you to kind of think differently, think out of the box, that's what I'm all about. Coach K, me and him met, I don't even know how long ago it's been now, but man, I love that dude's passion. I love his heart. But it wasn't like that when we first started out. When we first met, it was kind of intense. I don't know if any of you know him and been around him for a period of time. He can kind of be intense. And so when I first came across him, we were kind of feeling each other out. You know, two alpha males, mano y mano, kind of, we was finna lock horns. And man, I'm telling you, I didn't know what I was signing up for. You know, he had heard about me. I don't know how he heard about me, but he came my way. He came to my office. And for some reason, or maybe it was because I was sitting down, at the time, he seemed a little bit bigger and he seemed a little louder, and at that time he had a little bit more weight on him. He slimmed down now. He's got his sexy back, But he came in, man, and we were I was filling him out, he's filling me out. And over a period of time, you know what I saw? And I said this to him. I said, I see you, man. You have a big heart, and you're hiding it. You don't want nobody to know just how big of a heart you have. And it was from that time forward, we got to sharing ideas, concepts. I come from a background, I'm retired military, retired Air Force, 20 years in the Air Force. I got an undergrad in management from Kansas Newman. About at the 15-year mark, I went back and got my master's degree in marriage and family therapy. Decided that's what I wanted to do post, military. Some of the people in leadership, that I was reporting to, they wasn't too happy about that. You see, where I was an enlisted guy, and all you really needed in order to make it to the next level, become, E8, E9, chief, and master sergeant, was an undergrad. I mean, you really didn't have to have that. So I already had my undergrad. I'm talking about going back and getting a master's degree. So I kind of showed my hand in the aspect that they felt like I wasn't devoted to the Air Force. I wasn't all blue because I wanted to go back and I wanted to improve myself. One of the things, and I had no idea that was going to be the course. I grew up, I was a basketball player, graduated high school out at Star Spencer. And for those of you who are from the Oklahoma City area, y'all know Star Spencer, the Spencer area, that's the hood. I mean, I grew up rough and tough. I had some relatives of mine who were doing some unsavory things, some of my teammates doing some unsavory things. So I knew what it meant. In order for me to get out, I had to train my mind, and I was serious about it. My mom says, boy, you was like that when you was 9 years old, 8 years old. You was always asking questions, and I had to tell you, boy, shut up. Stop asking questions. You're embarrassing me. She said, but I couldn't get you to stop. I wanted to train my mind. I don't know, I just always been that way. I didn't know anything about the mental health field and the kids, I didn't know anything about psychology and things of that nature. If you wanted to work something out, it was, boy, you better go out and slop them hogs. You better go pick some, corn. I grew up kind of out in the country. So let me fast forward to where I'm going with this. My time in the military, my time honing my skills and learning how to become a better leader. I had no idea what I was doing initially, but the Air Force instilled some principles, some foundations in me that I had no idea was taking place at the time, but it's serving me well now. Because that time has allowed me to gather information and have a reservoir in which I can pour back into people. That's why I get energized when I see people come together in projects like this, One of the things I love about working with these guys is the fact that the camaraderie. We leave our egos and put our egos to the side, and when we're in that room, at 10:30, it's all about brainstorming and creating and thinking of ways in which we can take this city over by storm by pouring and giving back to the community. So I was really excited about this time frame. Enough said with that. Let me talk about what I'm supposed to be talking about. Leadership. That's what we're going to be talking about. Developing a leadership mindset. I'm going to start out with this. How important it is for us to train our minds and be intentional and on purpose. There's a quote that talks about mind is the master power that molds and makes, and man is mind and evermore he takes. His tool of thought in shaping what he wills brings forth 1,000 joys, 1,000 ills. In secret he thinks, and it comes to pass. Environment is but his looking glass. It's all about being intentional, having vision, having a purpose. You have to begin with the end in mind and be intentional about leadership. What you guys do as coaches, as trainers, whatever, teachers, you must invest in yourself in order to be able to give to the people who come around you. You can't teach and train something that you don't own yourself. Try it. You do it long enough, they're going to figure out. He faking, she don't know what she talking about, she don't own it. And I'm telling you, this generation of kids, they will exploit you. And if you don't know, you'll find out. Leadership. When we talk about leadership, beginning with the end in mind, the best leaders in the military that I ran across, the best leaders that I've run across in my life, they were students, great students. They were students of the process of learning leadership, going, investing in themselves, pouring into themselves, and they're students of their students. Are y'all picking up what I'm laying down when I say that? If you want to train and teach somebody, you need to put yourself in a position where you can observe and understand who you're working and dealing with. Does that make sense? Great leaders are students of leadership. From the bottom to the top, to the top to the bottom, and everywhere in between. Does that make sense? So, what I'm going to give you a couple principles when it comes to leadership. Understanding this, foundation precedes function. Foundation precedes function. Think about a house. If you're going to have a stable house, you must have a stable foundation. Before that framework can go up and support the people in the house, you show me a foundation that's built on quicksand that's not stable, I'll show you a dysfunctional group of people. So when I say you have to begin with the end in mind, you have to start, where am I going? What do I want to create? What is it that I'm wanting to have as far as a culture? What am I creating? You must be visionary. You must look out. There's a program that I have that's called I Will. I will, I can, I must. I will thrive. I will drive myself toward perfection. I ain't saying that I may never have arrived there, but that's the goal. Excellence is the key. You see what I'm saying? Some of our mantras in the military, service before self and excellence, all we do. We had to die to I in order to be a part of a team. So foundation precedes function. Great leaders. In order to be a great leader, you must have at least these three things, and maybe a whole lot more, but it takes intention, it takes sacrifice, and it takes maturity. And I'm talking about you as a coaching staff, you as trainers, whatever it is that you do, you have to have a mindset. I must be intentional, meaning I have to have intention. I will get up in order to go up. Be intentional about it. It requires sacrifice. I must give up in order to go up. There's some things you're going to have to sacrifice. There's some things that you were doing, that you're going to have to cut out if you're really wanting to create a culture and environment where you're going upward. If you're going to climb a mountain, you got to give up and sacrifice some things. Does that make sense? Last thing, maturity. I will grow up in order to go up, okay? I will grow myself from the inside out. I will train my mind. I will train my perspective to die to I for the sake of building cohesion. Does that make sense? I only got 2 more slides. You guys, it ain't going to be too much longer. And I'm going to be asking some questions. We're going to have a question and answer session after this. Okay, good. When I talk about beginning with the end in mind, creating your culture. I have 3 kids. My son Miles is now in the military. He's in the Air Force. He's stationed over in Aviano Air Base in Italy. He was a basketball player. I was a basketball player. You can't tell it now. You would probably think I was a football player by my size, but I used to be a little bit leaner and meaner than this. I'm kind of, gentle. I'm trying to get my sexy back to like, Coach K, but he ain't got me worked out on these machines quite yet. I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress. 3 kids, Miles, Mia, and Morgan, the M&M family, the M's. Miles, basketball player, Mia, basketball player, Morgan, basketball player. Turns out, basketball, took one through college, my son, The other 2 decided they wanted to leave basketball alone and do what they were doing to stay in shape for basketball and track. I have one daughter who runs track at OU. I have a daughter who runs track at KU. One's a senior in her senior year. Yeah, KU and OU. Can you imagine that? I mean, talk about a house divided, man. So why do I mention that? In the process, I learned, as being a parent, I needed to stay in front of them. I needed to train their minds from the inside out because I knew the world was going to test them, okay? And every one of my kids are different. They're all different. And it was my job. I had to be a student of them to understand and find out what their currency was. Each of them had a different currency. My son, Miles, admiration and appreciation. He loves his dad to tell him attaboy, and to support him in that way. He just likes hearing that from his dad. I don't know why, but I had to learn that about him, and I had to pour into him and give him that because it infused him, it inspired him to do more. Just to see dad, sitting in the crowd, it did something. Son, turn it up. I said, turn it up, boy, let me see what you got. And he would become a different person. My daughter, Mia, not so much like Miles. Her thing was she just wanted to be held and nurtured and told that she mattered. You see what I'm saying? The world was going to feed things into her and tell her that her value and worth was less than what my job was to inspire her. You see and let her know that she's a princess. She's a queen. You see what I'm saying? And I was intentional about that from the very beginning. I wanted to pour into them. My daughter, Morgan, her currency was privacy. She was at that third one, you kind of finding your way with the first one, The second one, you kind of get some things dialed in. By the time the third one comes along, man, she had it all figured out. Them older 2, they bumped their heads, and they did all kind of things. That younger one, man, she was just driven. And I remember them saying, the older 2 in college, right? And they said, Dad, you never let us do that. You didn't treat us like that. Why she gets, you spoiling Morgan. Why you treat? I said, you know what? You wouldn't want me to treat y'all all the same because you're not the same. In your organization, you're going to have people who are auditory learners through hearing. You're going to have visual learners, hands-on, kinesthetic. Your job is to understand as a leader, as somebody who's pouring into them, how they receive information. Does that make sense? And in order to give it to them, you're going to have to be a student. You're going to have to educate yourself and stay a step or two or three ahead of them, okay? I'm telling you, it makes it a whole lot easier. And sometimes, know this, they're going to mess up. I wanted my kids to fail, you know? I wanted them on purpose. I remember a couple of times, my wife, man, oh, she was so hot at me. My wife was cleaning the oven, and Miles was my hard-headed kid. You know, I could tell the girls, hey, you want to walk around this side of the island because your mom is cleaning the oven? I'd be doggone if Miles wouldn't every time walk on that side and just get intrigued by the light being on. I intentionally stood there and watched him touch it. My wife is coming from the other direction. She said, William, why in the world would you? I wanted him to know, what it felt like to get burned. I'll never have to tell him again. You see what I'm saying? A lesson learned. He owns it. My daughter, Mia, when she was learning how to ride the bike, it was hard for her to trust. I'd run alongside her. I intentionally took off the training wheels knowing she was going to fall. And put her kind of a little bit on the downhill. I was one of them, mean dads. But I wanted her to fall because I wanted to see what type of fight she had in her. Was she just going to lay there and cry and look around for daddy to come save her? Or was she going to get up and walk that bike back to me? Or would she get up and just go on, my wife again, she said, William, why would you let her? I said, you know what? I can tell you this. If she has the courage to get back up on that bike, I bet she won't fall on her right side. If she falls, it's going to be to the left, if she falls at all. But she's going to be overcorrecting. You see what I'm saying? Because she picked up some information that was valuable, and she owns it now. I don't have to reteach it and retrain it. Does that make sense? Y'all looking at me like I'm crazy. Y'all picking up what I'm laying down here? Okay. Creating the culture. I was talking about my girls. One of the things that I learned, and I was telling them, we gained a lot of bonus children along the way because my kids were in athletics. So whoever, was coming over to the Mukes house in order to eat or whatever, we gained a lot of bonus children. We had a lot of potluck dinners like Coach K was talking about. One of the things that I discovered was they would gravitate and they would want some of the information that they hadn't gotten maybe in their family of origins. And as coaches, you know what I'm talking about. Sometimes they come to you and they're not equipped. And maybe they got family struggles that's going on at home. Little Johnny can't focus on algebra today, can't focus on running that route or that pattern or their swing pattern because there's stuff going on inside of the head internally. Does that make sense? So you as coaches have to be in tune to that and dial into it. And if you can't do it, find somebody who can, okay? That's what places and projects like this is for, in order for us to train and teach the complete athlete. Creating a culture. I was talking about the bonus children. I would tell and pour into them, and I tell them, look, if you're not getting what you want from your coaches, it's your responsibility. You know you better than anybody else. And if you don't, you need to be in the process of learning. So how about this? You learn how to be a self-advocate and communicate in a healthy way. Coach, one thing that I know about me is I'm an auditory learner, or I'm a visual. If you show it to me, I pick it up a little better. You see what I'm saying? How to self-advocate, how to communicate in a way, and they create the culture. One of the things I loved about my youngest daughter, when we took her to KU and dropped her off there, the young lady who was responsible for being her sponsor on the trip took her, hey, Mr. Mukes, Mrs. Mukes, nice to meet you guys. I got Morgan. We're going to take real good care of her, and she was gone. We didn't see her for the rest of the weekend. What they did is they created a culture in which they aggregated to whatever new recruits, and they modeled in front of them what was appropriate in their program. Now we don't go out and drink and hang out. That if that's what you about, you don't want to come here, because that ain't how we get down. The athletes created the culture. How did that happen? Because the coaches had started out long ago and said there's so many things that we can do, and there's so many things that we want to pass along to these athletes, and it's their job to keep the culture going. You understand what I'm saying when I say create a culture? And you have to begin with the end in mind. If that's what you want as far as a program, then create it from the beginning and work backwards. Does that make sense? I'm gonna move on. Y'all picking up what I'm laying down. Okay, creating a culture, that is your brand. That's what you're gonna be known by, is what you institute and put in place from the very beginning. Going back to the leadership mindset, and I was talking about the people that you're gonna come in. I'm gonna end on this. Another quote, and this is in order for you to understand and recognize who's coming into your programs, who you have as coaches, maybe some of you are assistant coaches or whatever, but I want you to remember this, this concept of understanding and sorting and sifting through and figuring out what you have and what you are going to need to coach and teach. And that's this: he who knows not and knows that he knows not, but thinks that he knows, is a fool. Leave him alone. He who knows not and knows that he knows not is a child. Teach him. He who knows and knows not that he knows is asleep. Wake him. Oh, but he who knows and knows that he knows and uses what he knows to help others is a leader. Follow him. Do you have a fool? Do you have a child? Do you have a sleeper? Or do you have a leader? And that's applicable to you as well as the people who are coming through your program. Because some of you have some fools on your program. And if you don't know who they are, it could possibly be you. Some of you have some sleepers in your program. They need to be awakened. You ever had a kid who didn't know how gifted and how talented he was, and he's just, wasted? You're like, man, if you got some act right and some get up and go, man, you could be a beast. Wake them. Teach them. Develop the leaders around you. All of us have leadership potential. It's a matter of tapping into it, accessing it, activating it. You must first develop your mindset. Secondary, develop the skill set, okay, in order for foundational principles to create functioning in your organizations that produce outstanding, incredible outcomes. Does that make sense? Last concept, last thought. Leadership from the top down and the bottom up. Back to my military experiences. Some of the best leaders that I had, commanders, generals, whoever they were, they had the mindset to come down from their lofty position and kind of pull their sleeves up and get to know the enlisted folks. They wanted to know what we were experiencing at the bottom. And what they understood was, you ever heard that concept is lonely at the top? If it's lonely at the top, you're doing something wrong. You ever see, why would you climb to a top of a mountain to experience it just by yourself? Maybe you do it one time, but the next thing, you need to be bringing some people along with you. Does that make sense? If you're lonely at the top, if you're lonely at the bottom, you're doing something wrong. Rethink it. reprogram it, tweak it, adjust. Circumstances and events give you feedback. Some people believe the circumstance and event, it dictates what they can and cannot do. I don't believe that. I believe the event. I tell my kids, my daughters who run the 400 meter or whatever, that 400, that 100 is there to give you feedback. I had a basketball coach, he said, Mukes, you went from being a 90% free throw shooter to shooting 60%. Son, stop being so frustrated about it's just feedback. You need to either shoot it longer, shorter, adjust to the left or the right. It's feedback. In order for you to adjust, my job, my thing, mental prep, giving people a mental edge is standing beside them and coaching them and developing them to understand how to be the best that they can be, how to reach in and get that leader within and bring it to the surface. Y'all picking up what I'm laying down? All right. I told you I was excited. I took way too much time. But if nothing else, you remember this. Foundation precedes functioning, okay? Top up, top down. Our minds are powerful. We must grow ourselves. You must take initiative, okay? It's a must. You must sacrifice. And you must be mature. One of the biggest breakdowns in healthy relationship, two things: selfishness and immaturity. You show me somebody who has an ineffective relationship, I'll show you somebody who is either selfish or immature or both. That's all I got for you. Coach K, appreciate you, brother.